Welcome to Startup Dudes, episode 6. I'm Todd.
And I'm Bill.
He's my dad. We're going to talk a little bit about the value of an education when you're starting up a company. So maybe the ultimate startup in your career and in many people's minds might be Disney World. That was a startup, right? It started from swampland.
Certainly was.
So a lot of people will
27,000 acres.
Is that right?
Raw land.
Alligators and all?
Yeah.
As a professor, a lot of students come to me and they say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do something. I want to start something. Should I get an advanced degree? Should I get an MBA or a master's degree? What's your take on that, number one? And knowing that you did get an MBA, what value did it bring to you in the process?
I think that's an important question because it's one of those those big crossroads in everybody's life as to whether you want to do it. And there's a lot of issues relative to the cost of it, and the amount of time it takes.
Family issues, if you got a family.
Yeah, I don't think it's right for everybody. I think the trades are becoming increasingly important today. But let's frame it in terms of your question, and this about me. So I got an MBA out of Florida Atlantic University. I was in Florida.
Was that a big reason why you chose that school? Because it was just convenient?
It was totally convenient.
Okay.
And then I noticed I was getting ready to graduate with the MBA that seemingly everybody was talking about Disney. They were getting ready to open in October of 1971. And I was not unlike the rest of the group. I was interested in that too. It seemed to me it was a big piece of history. So I jumped in the car, wasn't very far away, and drove to Kissimmee, Orlando area, and they had a professional staffing trailer. They had a cast member's trailer too if you didn't have a degree, but they said go over there if you have a degree. So
that was like the management trailer?
Yeah.
Were you the management?
Yeah, you got a better shot at getting into management right away. So that was, I guess you could say that was the first, in terms of how we're sequencing.
Which trailer you went to?
Yeah, went to the professional staffing trailer. And then I sat down and I began to understand, during the process of the interview, what was mattering and what wasn't mattering too much. And they said, okay, so you've got an MBA, that's important. We're happy to have you in the professional staffing trailer. And we also noticed that you spent 4 years at JCPenney's working your way through school. We really like that. It tells us a lot about you. So I think you should talk to our merchandising department. So at that point in time, they carved you out, directing you to...
Was that a fairly quick conversation that they were having?
It was.
So they pretty much said, boom, 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 we think you have a retail background, we're going to put you there. You have management experience, right, at JCPenney, and you have an advanced degree. So sounds like they had already kind of...
They did.
Boxed those things.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of input on that.
They didn't say you want to go into ride operations.
I was thinking of marketing, Don't ask me why exactly, but anyhow, so I went and talked to that was step number 2, talked with their merchandising department, and they said pretty much the same thing. They said, tell me about pennies. I talked about pennies a little bit and what I had done. I was part of the management kind of training program. They want to build you into a department manager. And in those days, pennies were a pretty big deal. They were a pretty big deal. Things have changed a lot, with Amazon and all kinds of other things.
But they were America's department store. I always kind of cared. It was either them or Sears, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was basically 2 big boys. And I took the job at Penny's when I was going to school because there was a lot of flexibility. I could tailor it to my schedule as I was going to school. So they said, you were in the management training program. Tell us what was that all about? And I walked them through that I did, was a night manager in the warehouse. And I was certainly a salesman. Everybody was a salesman. And they were training me to be a department manager. So they said, we think you would be helpful to us in retail operations. There's two big pieces in the merchandise, consumer product division. One was merchandise operations, and one was the buying, the product development. Those were the two big pieces. So I said, fine. So I became a supervisor at Disney at Mickey's Mart.
So one thing we can surmise from that is that if you didn't have the MBA, that you wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, it was almost a combination of pennies and the MBA. I'm going to tell you.
But you wouldn't have gone to the good trailer or the administrative
Well,
trailer.
with a bachelor's degree, I would have gone to the trailer.
You still would have gone.
I think so.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you a little bit later in a couple of minutes why the MBA took on a more important role, as I started to progress with Disney.
By the way, I think it makes sense to point out that having an MBA in the early 70s was very
it was pretty unusual.
Yeah, it wasn't like it is today where there's a lot of MBAs.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So actually, there might have been a premium.
I think so. I felt, I almost felt a little bit embarrassed about it because there wasn't anybody else over there. I couldn't find anybody else that had. I'm sure there was a few, but I didn't know where they were.
Probably finance department. Maybe
so I almost felt like maybe I was a little too academic, and so I didn't talk about it very much. When I got past the interview section. So anyhow, they started working in Mickey's Mart as an operating supervisor, and that was, I had done that already. I was very comfortable. I was scheduling labor and making sure that the merchandise was presented properly. I mean, all of those types of things I'd been doing at Penny's for 4 years. So it was very comfortable. And it wasn't very long before, it was only 6 months, before I wanted to start knocking on the door of the buying department, product development department, where they were making decisions on product pricing, selections of product.
Why did that appeal to you? Why was that so interesting to you?
I thought it was more, I could make more of an impact there. I mean, when I was an operating supervisor, here's all of your product, just put it up.
Put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
And
we didn't buy anything. We requisitioned it out of the warehouse. The buying department is the one that made all the decisions.
And you didn't make decisions about pricing either, did you?
No.
Yeah.
But it really was a great place to start. I mean, because in the Disney consumer product division, if you haven't been in retail operations, you're missing a big piece. So I started knocking on the door of the buying departments that I'd like to be considered when there's an opportunity, and I got to know the merchandise manager at that time. And when the buyers would come into the stores, I would always make sure I was available to tour them and to answer their questions. And I think they were sufficiently impressed to say, let's give this guy a shot. So they gave me an opportunity in the buying department. They called me a buyer trainee. And now, as I'll tell you in a minute, the MBA started to take on a little bit more important. Again, I wasn't talking about it, but they knew it. I mean, the management, they all knew it. But it was like every year I'd get promoted. And it was almost too much. I wasn't really
quite ready.
Oh man, it was like baptism by fire. I mean, Disney was on fire, right? Disney was very growing beyond anybody's imagination, even though they knew Disney was maybe the most incredible entertainment product in the world. Still, it was just going so fast. The crowds were coming. The company was growing. It was hiring. So if you're on the ball and you're really contributing and they like what you're doing, they're going to push you up. It's almost like push up or push out. Mm-hmm. So every year it was another promotion. It was an assistant buyer, and then there was full buyer, and then it was assistant merchandise manager, and then it was merchandise manager. And then pretty soon I found myself, as I said, merchandise manager for the entire property of Walt Disney World, which included all the hotels and all the stores. And then later on, I was promoted to director. I think I might have been the youngest director at that time. I'm not 100% sure, but one of the younger guys. And then they gave me Disneyland and West Coast as well. So I was responsible for the Disney product for East and West Coast
I
operations.
think, tell me if you agree with this. I think it made it, your MBA made it easier for you to get promoted in the minds of the people that were making those decisions.
100%.
It's just one more thing they can say. This guy's got the experience. He's been with us for a while. He's demonstrated success, and he's got an advanced degree.
Yeah, and I was talking with a guy who I respect and love so much. His name is Wayne Booker. He was talking to him the other day. He and I were together, in the opening of
At Disney World.
Disney World. He actually came from Disneyland. He was one of about 6 or 7 guys that came from Disneyland to Orlando Walt Disney World to become part of the startup team. Brilliant, brilliant guy. And I was talking to him the other day, and I said, I didn't have a chance to really get my sea legs. I was moving so quickly. I don't even know if I was any good, And he said, no, 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 no. He said, everybody knew you were good. He said, we all respected you. We knew you worked hard. Get that thought out of your mind. It was really sweet of him. Nobody said anything like that in 20 years. But so that, I think the MBA, getting back to your original question, was a big reason. It's not just the fact that you had it, it was that you know how to present, you know how to write. When you write things, you're not making grammatical errors all over the place. Your thought process, all of that's kind of implied with your education, and we don't talk about that so much, about communication. But I would say that on a day-to-day basis, that was more important than, the guy's got a degree on the shelf.
I mean, and that kind of goes back to the whole reason why a college education became important, is because you get a universal at the university, universal exposure and education, all these different things that you can use as their tools to do better in life, get a better job. So I think what we're saying is that, okay, so number one, it opens doors. These are things that are, I think what we're doing is we're confirming what we already know here, right? These are not things that are going to be unique to our audience as far as what they've
That's
heard.
just a little storytelling.
But so you've got opens doors. You've got it makes it easier for someone to sign off on your promotion. It seems like it's certain industries or disciplines value it more than others. Like you said, going blue collar, you probably don't need it. I mean, I know for sure my plumber makes more money than I do. I don't think he has a master's degree. I could be wrong. I don't think he does. So if you're going to go into business, right, and you knew that was kind of the path your career was taking, you had always been in business, it might make more sense than in other. What about, to wrap up, what about entrepreneurial? So this is someone that's going to hang their shingle, do their own thing. How would the MBA or an advanced degree help that person?
Well, I definitely learned during that period of time at Disney that I had entrepreneurial blood. Okay. I learned that because I really like the process of creating things, creating product, and one of the other things I should mention before we end the segment is that on the math, we talked about communication skills and presentation and all that, but math, that's a big part of the education. And when I got into the buying office as a merchandise manager, I mean, math became almost overwhelming. I mean, what's your margin? What's your margin, and how many days is this going to take for this to happen, and what kind of projection do you have? And I, because of that education, I was able to talk math as well as anybody in the company in my division. And then I found opportunities to make the process of projecting the needs that you have for all of these different products based upon kind of a projection technique, or we called it a projection sheet. And every order that we submitted, and they all went to me when I became merchandise manager, had to have a projection sheet. There had to be a kind of a
justification.
Yeah, justification. What's the logic, behind, how long were you out of stock? I mean, if you had been in stock, would you have sold more? All of that was taken into account with the projection sheet. So, and I was able to kind of finessed that projection sheet a little bit. And
Did you
I
learn?
found later that the projection sheet found its way throughout the whole resort industry.
Did you learn how to do that in grad school?
Yes, it came. One of the projects I got involved with during my MBA was the Janssen, swimwear brand Janssen. There was a Janssen forecasting model that was just something that we learned. And I took the Janssen forecasting model and kind of brought it into a simplified form and created a forecasting model or a projection sheet that worked for us at Disney World. Well, that's one example, of how the MBA kind of played.
It sounded like it worked out for you, for sure. So to summarize again, it opened doors. It made it easier for you to get promoted. You came into the job knowing how to do things that you found were useful. But we've also, I think, agreed that it's not for everyone. And we're not here to say that you should go out and get an MBA tomorrow, because that's a major decision, or any advanced degree.
We're happy to talk to you about it. If you ever want to talk to us, either one of us.
We're huge fans of it.
Todd is a university professor. He's got a law degree. He can talk education till 2 a.m, in his sleep. And I would give it to you probably a little bit more from a business perspective. But we're here to talk to you. That's one of the reasons that we were doing this.
Yeah. So, and obviously the other piece is the financial component, which you pointed out earlier. It's much more expensive today than I think it's ever been, and that's obviously something that people have to take into consideration. But thanks for watching. We appreciate you subscribing and tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you soon.